Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 6 running back start or sits. I'm going to be specifically talking about my 4 starts and my 2 sits at the running back position as we enter Week 6 of the Fantasy Football season. I'm also going to be talking about my 1 through 36 rankings, as I've established a good rankings for this week that give you guys a better idea of who you should be starting. Many of you ask me, Andrew, should I start Joe Mixon or Devonta Freeman? These rankings will give you a better idea and hopefully answer those questions so that I don't have to go into the comment section and answer 800 questions a week. It wasn't that much. I was perhaps over-exaggerating, but by all means, there were a lot of questions. Now, before we begin, I just want to thank all of you who have subscribed to my YouTube channel. If you haven't yet and you like the content, maybe you're unfamiliar, you're going to continue to watch. If you like and you want more of this content, subscribe down below, go down to the comment section if you've got a specific question. I will answer your question. Others in the community are willing to answer your question. And that's pretty much it. So let's get right into the running backs for Week 6. Hey, everybody, how's it going? All right, so we're here. It's Week 6. Pretty much almost halfway there. Many of your leagues play 13 weeks prior to getting into the playoffs. Many of you play Week 14, 15, 16 playoffs. If you play in a Week 17 playoff system, I'm sorry to hear about that. That is very unfortunate. But as of right now, we're almost at the midway, and I'm proud to announce that everything's going according to plan and everything is burning down all at the same time. Every other week, I have a projection that'll completely go the opposite direction. People understand that I'm human. If I knew what the picks and the best performers of the week were going to be, I wouldn't be making YouTube channels. I'd be in Vegas putting money down on horses, okay? But all things considered, these are my starts of the week. We have Aaron Jones. We have James White. Now, last week, Aaron Jones was highly ranked amongst my running backs, and I'm just here to confirm I'm not giving up on Aaron Jones. I honestly believe going forward and for the rest of the season, Aaron Jones is going to be a valuable part of the fantasy football landscape, and especially for these Green Bay Packers. Now, the issue was that this past week against the Detroit Lions, Aaron Jones was not put in a situation for him to succeed, right? The game script instantly turned to Aaron Rodgers needs to start throwing the ball in order to get this team back into the game. They found themselves turning over the ball early with Aaron Rodgers, multiple interceptions, fumbles. I mean, it wasn't going their way. That one punt that ricocheted off of one of the Packers and was down in the 1-yard line. Boom, there goes LeGarrette Blount. Aaron Jones was not put in a great situation. The Detroit Lions, by all means, was a great matchup for him this past week, but he wasn't able to take that into full advantage. The way I see it, this coming week against the San Francisco 49ers on Monday Night Football, I think Aaron Jones is going to continue to get more opportunity. The game script will not get away from him because I don't see the 49ers completely blowing out the Packers. And I think Aaron Jones is going to have a good week. I like him as one of my starts of the week. And for going forward, he's going to be great. As of thus far, I mean, these are some ridiculous stats. He's almost averaged 6 yards per carry this season, a little bit more than 6 yards per carry. He's looked great, and I think just this Packers team, they're going to progressively get better, especially with the injuries to the wide receiver position. They're going to have to hand the ball off. They can't just force Aaron Rodgers to throw the ball 60 times. They are not the Colts. They will not go and start doing that unless it really gets dicey and risky. Anyway, so there's Aaron Jones. I really have some trust in him. He should absolutely start this week for you. Now, James White, my next start of the week. Goodness gracious, James White. How amazing has this guy been? I mean, it's a week-to-week thing that you can guarantee James White is putting up 10 points in PPR leagues. Okay? It's absolutely just consider the statistics from last week. Okay? Against the Colts on Thursday Night Football, James White had 2 rushes for 0 yards. Oh, that doesn't look great at all. Okay? That's worse than Derrick Henry stats, right? But on the flip side, James White had 14 targets, 10 receptions, 77 receiving yards, and a touchdown. James White is, by all means, the number one wide receiver for the New England Patriots. I think going into this week, Sunday Night Football versus the Kansas City Chiefs in Foxborough, I think James White has another great opportunity to have himself a week, as I like to say. James White, I mean, he's just been absolutely ridiculously good. Just as of the first 5 weeks of the season, okay, he scored 4 touchdowns. I mean, who else has done that? I'll tell you, there's not many, okay? Kareem Hunt, as of late, has been great. But James White, a guy that you may have drafted in the 8th, 9th round, he's coming back and he's giving you value that we couldn't have predicted, you know? The Burkhead situation was unfortunate for many of the Burkhead owners, but James White has blossomed into a fantastic fantasy prospect, and he's going to continue to produce. I like him this week against the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be a fantastic game, by the way. All right, let's move on with my next 2 starts of the week for Week 6 of the regular season. We've got ourselves Chris Carson and Devonta Freeman. Now, goodness gracious, Chris Carson. Okay, so Chris Carson, in the last 2 games that he's played, has had over 100 yards rushing in each game. Okay? Now, obviously, we all know, especially Chris Carson owners know, that in between these last 2 games, he missed a week due to a hip injury in which Mike Davis also had a 100-yard rushing game. So this Seattle Seahawks offense, they've gotten back to what they used to do, right? Their good old bread and butter when Marshawn Lynch was the lead back and they would just punish defenses, right? They've gotten back to that, and that's where they're comfortable at, right? Where you don't have to force Russell Wilson to make plays with his feet because the run game is there. This is something the Seattle Seahawks did not have last year, right? Last year, they brought in guys like Eddie Lacy to try to fix this situation. By all means, Eddie Lacy's a bum. If he ever plays again, I'll be surprised. But last year's backfield for the Seattle Seahawks wasn't great. Chris Carson was the only shining light, and as soon as he had gotten injured, it was gone, right? The rest of the season, it was all Russell Wilson, who led the team in rushing last season, right? What the organization wants to do is they want to take the ball out of his hands. They want to give it to these young monsters, Mike Davis and especially Chris Carson that you see on the screen. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, what is that? 218 rushing yards? I understand. Isaiah Crowell had more than that this past week in one game. But that's not the point. This shows to us, right? 32 carries, 19 carries, right? This shows that the Seattle Seahawks not only trust Chris Carson, but they're willing to feed him and that he's being productive with his attempts. This coming week, I love Chris Carson. He, honestly, you're going to be surprised where you see him on my rankings list. I went and I watched the runs that he had against the so if you go to if you stay on YouTube, okay, but you don't leave my channel. Don't leave the channel, guys. And you go and you look up Chris Carson every run versus Rams, right? There are compilations that people build where it's literally every time Chris Carson touched the ball on Sunday, it shows those plays, right? He looked fantastic, right? The blocking up front is incredible. It is a complete paradigm shift when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks offensive line, who has been struggling these last couple of years, And honestly, this week, Chris Carson against the Raiders of all teams is going to have himself a good week. I like him as a start of the week. Now, the last guy I want to talk about when it comes to starts of the week, we have here Devonta Freeman, a guy that I know many of you are going to be talking and asking me about, whether it comes to start or sit, pretty much, right? I think going into Week 6 of the regular season, we saw a little bit of Devonta Freeman last week. He had 10 touches total, and he was decently productive, but the game script did not help Devonta Freeman, right? With guys like Tevin Coleman and Ito Smith also in that backfield, when it starts getting to, okay, we are losing the game by 20-plus points, we need to throw the ball, Devonta Freeman isn't the 100% first option when it comes to that, right? Tevin Coleman has been known to be that third down back, a guy that contributes a lot. And Ito Smith has found his way to steal some goal line carries here and there. But as of this last week, Devonta Freeman 8 carries for 32 yards and 2 receptions for 9 yards. It wasn't great, but that was a good way to get him back into the field. He had been out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. As of right now, I see this matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as something that you should be pretty excited about. Okay, I understand Devonta Freeman is going to have some carries taken away from him, but they're going to continue to give him more and more carries as the season progresses, and I think this week is the week to start doing so, right? He's healthy. He's gotten back into the groove. He's had multiple weeks of practice. He is going to be the number one back of this team going forward, and I think against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it couldn't get any better of a matchup for this coming week. I like Devonta Freeman. That's why he's one of my starts of the week. Now, let's start going, and let's talk about my 2 sits of the week. Now, before I get there, I want to just talk about why I only have 2 sits of the week. Because of the bye week, the bye weeks that specifically hit the Detroit Lions this coming week and the New Orleans Saints, there are 4 good running backs there that could potentially play on fantasy lineups this week. LeGarrette Blount with that touchdowns on the goal line, Kieran Johnson, Mark Ingram, and Alvin Kamara, right? There are not that many guys that I'm going to say completely stay away from because honestly, there's not too many options this week because of injuries, because of bye weeks, and I think 2 is a pretty safe number when it comes to sits. I mean, I don't like these guys one bit. Now, you may be thinking, Andrew, what have they done to you? Well, let me tell you. Kenyan Drake and Derrick Henry. Let's talk Kenyan Drake first. A guy who last week, by all means, had a 20-point fantasy game, but it wasn't something that I think he's going to continue to be able to produce. He was the leading receiver for the Miami Dolphins last week. It's not like, oh, that's a great thing. He's like James White. He's going to catch 10 to 7 balls out of the backfield. 7 to 10 balls out of the backfield. He's going to have 15 targets. No, that's not how the situation works. Kenyan Drake, honestly, I think he just had a lucky week. If you can, in my opinion, you should try to trade him on the high value that he somehow has now. I mean, that was his best performance thus far this season, with only 5 carries out of the backfield, if I'm not mistaken. To be honest, the Miami offense, it just doesn't work. Early on in the season, they were making a lot of big plays. Jakeem Grant makes plays, Albert Wilson makes plays, Kenny Stills makes plays, right? These 3 guys are deep threat, 9 route, I'm going to run straight and I'm going to beat you like that, right? Defenses want you to do that. Defenses would rather play against guys that run in straight lines than play against the shifty guys that are going to route run and completely shatter your ankles, right? They want to play against the guys that think they can just completely outrun you with their burners, right? This past week, let me see these carries. Oh, man, 6 carries for 46 yards. Wow, okay, great. If he was that efficient, if he was 7.7 yards per carry, why wouldn't you have given him the ball more? Why are we still giving Frank Gore 12 carries? This is the 3rd consecutive week in which Frank Gore has out-carried on the ground Mr. Kenyan Drake. I don't like it. As I mentioned before last week, I'd rather him sit on my bench and score fantasy points, or you can trade him, get some value back, than have him dropped on the waivers. Going forward, I need to see more consistency, and I need to see the Miami Dolphins either completely use him as a receiving back, like Chris Thompson is utilized and Alvin Kamara is utilized, or I need to see him, get more carries than Frank Gore. Other than that, I don't trust Kenyan Drake going forward, especially into this very difficult matchup. The Miami Dolphins are going to have a very, very, very tough time against the Khalil Mack-led Bears defense, one of the, if not the best defense in the NFL. These guys make plays. I think the record that I saw on Khalil Mack was he has had a sack and a forced fumble in every game this season. Broke a record. Anyway, that's Kenyan Drake. I just don't trust him, guys. Now, the other guy that I put my faith into this past week, I thought Derrick Henry versus the Buffalo Bills, a defense that has given up yards on the ground, right? They've given up a lot of yards on the ground. The Bills, were able to absolutely dominate the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans were a shell of themselves, I'd say. Derrick Henry, again, he isn't making any improvements to separate himself from Dion Lewis. Dion Lewis is going to continue to get carries, and Dion Lewis is the third down back. I think going forward, what is Derrick Henry? A bench guy, a guy that maybe you can play into a good matchup, but truthfully, speaking, the only good matchup that they have is perhaps the Colts. They play them twice a year, okay? But against Jacksonville, it's going to be tough. Against the Houston Texans, it's going to be tough. And playing against other AFC teams that have pretty stout defenses, Derrick Henry, just not a great play. I think especially this week against, what do we got here? The Baltimore Ravens. I mentioned the Baltimore Ravens this past week on my Hidden Gems video, and I spoke about them having the fourth best defense when it comes to allowing yards on the ground. They only allow 82 yards on the ground as of last week. This past week against the good old Cleveland Browns, Carlos Hyde was kept to 63 yards, right? Duke Johnson was able to get in there, have a couple good runs. Baker Mayfield was able to go around, scramble. But when Carlos Hyde is kept to only 63 yards, there are some issues. I think Derrick Henry's not going to have a fun time against that Baltimore defense, and that's why he's one of my starts of the week. So let's get into it. Let's talk about my Week 6 running back rankings. All right. It's pretty straightforward, right? Todd Gurley, number 1. Now, you may be thinking, Andrew, wow, Todd Gurley's number 1. He just scored 3 touchdowns, had 31.5 fantasy points and half-point PPR. Why else would Todd Gurley be number 1? Well, he's playing against the Denver Broncos defense that gave up 300 rushing yards to the 300 rushing yards, okay, to the New York Jets. Now, is there a possibility that Todd Gurley has 300 yards rushing? No, right? That's, it's pretty insane. But by all means, he's going to have a good game. I think with the injuries to Cooper Kupp and Brandon Cooks, yes, the Jared Goff-led offense is still going to throw the ball, right? That kid Reynolds that came in looked decent, right? There was 3 plays in a row that boom, boom, boom gave him the ball, right? I think, yes, the Rams are going to be diverse. They're not going to just completely lean onto the running game. But I think that there is a good opportunity. Josh Reynolds, by the way. There is a good opportunity for Todd Gurley to be the number 1 back. Why? He's going to have every goal line carry. He's going to be dynamic. And he's playing against the defense that's very bad. So he's number 1. Number 2, good old Melvin Gordon. A guy that on a weekly basis continues to be great. Yes, Austin Eckler's there to steal some carries. But what are you going to do about it? I think Austin Eckler coming in, honestly, gives a little bit of a charge, if you wouldn't say, to the offense. But playing against the Cleveland Browns this week, Melvin Gordon is, he's one of the best backs in the NFL. I think comparatively to the other backs, I like the Cleveland matchup. We've seen the Cleveland defense be exploited in the run game, if anywhere, in the last couple weeks. I like Melvin Gordon. He's going to continue to be an option out of the backfield and in the passing game. They line him up wide. They do everything with Melvin Gordon. They keep him on the field at all times. Hopefully I didn't say Melvin Ingram at any time. God. What's funny also? Melvin Ingram, speaking of running backs for the Chargers, he went in at fullback this past week and plunged one in. Melvin Ingram, 54, the defensive end / outside linebacker. And he had an interception because Derek Carr, I'm going to roll left. Oh, right there, boom. The dude's standing right in front of you. Are you blind? Anyway, so Melvin Gordon is my number 2 running back. Number 3, Kareem Hunt. Okay, so I really think that this Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady, Patriots versus Chiefs Sunday night football game is going to be a really good game. Why? Because these teams can't play defense and they can score points, right? Now, you may be saying they can play defense, Andrew. Come on, they've played great. They got 5 interceptions on Blake Bortles. it's Blake Bortles, okay? If anybody was going to throw 5 interceptions this year, or 4 interceptions this year, 1 fumble, 5 turnovers, it's Blake Bortles, right? You caught him on a good week. Congratulations. The game was rainy, at least in the beginning, but Blake Bortles is a bum. Yet scores 20 points in fantasy. This week, number 3, Kareem Hunt. We're back to Kareem Hunt, okay, people? We're back to Kareem Hunt. He returns to play against the Patriots. The last time Kareem Hunt played against the Patriots was the opening game of last season, where Kareem Hunt had a 45-point fantasy game in half-point PPR scoring. Won me my fantasy week last year in week 1. Barely, my goodness. Kareem Hunt was an animal. I think this coming week, and especially off of the most recent performances from Kareem Hunt, he's been absolutely ridiculous. Like, I understand Patrick Mahomes has had 2 rough weeks per se, especially, he threw 2 interceptions this past week, but they've leaned on that run game. I told you guys last week, if there's any place that the Jacksonville Jaguars are weak, it's stopping the run, right? They have a great secondary. We know that, okay? They've got great coverage linebackers, but these defensive linemen, they're not going to be, completely susceptible to the run game, right? As of the last couple weeks, okay, the last 3 weeks specifically, Kareem Hunt has had against the 49ers, right? 2 touchdowns, 44 rushing yards. Against the Broncos, which everyone's been ripping on, 121 rushing yards and a touchdown. And this past week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, had 87 rushing yards and a touchdown. This isn't even counting him in the passing game. Kareem Hunt has been great. I think against this very, very weak defense that is called the Patriots D and good old Bill Belichick, I think there is an opportunity for Kareem Hunt to be a top 3 running back. That is why he's my number 3 this week. Number 4, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, what else is there to say? This guy, he's getting 5 touches a game. He's being used in the passing game. There is no sign of life from C.J. Anderson. And honestly, against the Redskins for this week, he's going to have a good game. The Redskins did not look good against the running back position. Obviously, Alvin Kamara wasn't needed as much. They gave him pretty much the week off so that next week he can get healthy off the bye week, and then they can progress for the rest of the season. But they gave up a lot of points to that running back position, and I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be able to cash in on that against the Washington Redskins defense. I like Christian McCaffrey this week. I mean, he's been amazing, right? We're all hoping that he can consistently do this and that his body can hold up. They had the early bye week. That is going to be that's obviously something people don't want, right? Teams do not want early bye weeks. They want it more towards the back end, maybe week 10, in order to get their bodies right and then make that playoff push. But as of right now, Christian McCaffrey shows no signs of slowing down. He's my number 4 this week. And this is half-point PPR scoring, by the way. Number 5, James Conner. Had a monster week last week. We spoke about that on yesterday's episode. I think James Conner is going to continue to be used against the Cincinnati Bengals defense. This might be James Conner's last week as the only running back in that backfield. I understand Stephen Ridley gets some carries here and there, but Le'Veon Bell should be coming back next week. All signs point to that, right? Le'Veon Bell has to play this year. He has to play football this year. There's been those, rumors going around. He'll play in week 7. Until he walks in and signs that contract, I'm still skeptical on the situation, right? But this might be James Conner's last week. He's going to make a push for it, right? He's going to make an argument this coming week to why he should get some snaps, why it shouldn't be just completely given to Le'Veon Bell. I think James Conner deserves snaps even when Bell comes back. They can be even better when you have a two-headed monster just like the Saints. I think James Conner this week against Cincinnati, he's going to be great. He's my number 5 running back. Number 6, Saquon Barkley against the Eagles on Thursday night. Now, I have said multiple times in the past, Saquon Barkley is an animal. Now, I've also said multiple times in the past that you don't want to ever start running backs against this Eagles defensive front, right? This defensive line is incredible. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Haloti Ngata, Michael Bennett, right? These guys are nothing to F with. They are fantastic, Okay, Chris Long, right? He's more of a pass rush, but it doesn't matter. They can do it all, right? They have such a good front seven that, honestly, the statistic, if I'm not mistaken, they've given the third fewest fantasy points to the running back position as of right now, right? They haven't let up a 10-point fantasy running back in a good amount of time. Let's go ahead and pull that up. One moment, please. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, anyway, we're here. Sorry, they gave up a 10-point running back in Dion Lewis, who had 9 receptions for 66 yards in a half-point PPR league. But all things considered, this past week, Latavius Murray only had 6.6 points in fantasy, only had 42 yards rushing. The week prior, right, only gave Derrick Henry, let's just talk about rushing yards, okay? I'm looking at these, and they don't look great, okay? This is a legit argument, people. Okay, Latavius Murray this past week, 42 rushing yards. The week prior, the Tennessee Titans only had 24 rushing yards from Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry combined. The week prior to that, against the Indianapolis Colts, the Colts only had, holy moly, 37 rushing yards combined within Peyton Barber and, sorry, not Peyton Barber. I saw an extra name. Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins. The week prior to that, against Peyton Barber and Jaquiz Rodgers, those two only had 35 rushing yards combined. And in week 1, against Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman, those two only had, 46 plus 55 rushing yards combined. They're not going to let you run the ball, but that's okay. Why do I have Saquon? I'm here to make a point. I've gotten here. Okay, we're here. All right. Now, what is my point? My point is Saquon Barkley has still produced in the passing game. I don't think he's a one-dimensional running back like good old Derrick Henry, right? He's a guy that's going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's proven that. Let me read some stats. Last week, 4 catches on 4 receptions for 81 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. The week prior, 6 receptions on 8 targets, 56 yards. The week prior to that, 5 receptions, 5 targets, 35 yards. The week prior to that, 16 targets, 14 receptions, 80 yards. He's used in the passing game. His targets are there. We do not have to worry about a Saquon Barkley this week. I understand. I've just proven it. The Eagles are not going to give up shit on the ground. They're not. They're too good for that, right? Especially coming off these losses. They're pissed. They're not okay with it, right? The defense is going to drop the hammer. Just be okay with it. Saquon Barkley is still a start because he's very dynamic. He is one of the best running backs in the NFL, and those thighs will run through people in the passing game. There's the point. Now, number 7, we got ourselves Ezekiel Elliott. He plays against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week, right? Now, here's the thing. As I mentioned before with Kareem Hunt, as I've mentioned before throughout the season, running backs are the only shining light against the Jacksonville defense. They are always going to have a good opportunity unless your name is Isaiah Crowell and you manage to have 0 rushing yards in that week and then turn it around for 200, okay? But as of right now, the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, I think, are most susceptible on the ground. Now, you might, have an argument here and there. If you play it against A.J. Boye and you try to, pin Barry Church and blah, blah, blah. Okay, we get it. But as of right now, throughout the season, the best opportunity against the Jacksonville Jaguars has been on the ground, okay? That's not saying much. They've only given up the 6th fewest points to the running back position in fantasy football, right? Even as I mentioned this past week, Kareem Hunt had 87 rushing yards. But the week prior to that, the Jets only had 26 rushing yards, right? The week prior to that against Tennessee, God, the bums of Tennessee, they only had 80 rushing yards. Here's my only issue, okay? Here's the caveat to it. The offense of the Dallas Cowboys is not great, okay? And that may hurt them a lot, right? When you don't have to worry about the passing game and you can stack the box, this may be an issue. That's why I have Ezekiel Elliott down here at 7. But I still believe he is capable and he will be able to be fantasy relevant. I'm not worried to the point where I'm sitting him by any means. Ezekiel Elliott is a week-to-week starter. He is the leading rusher in the NFL for a reason, and he's going to continue to be a beast. He's going to keep eating, baby. All right, number 8. We have Chris Carson. Why is that? Why do we have Chris Carson at 8? Well, I'll tell you. He is going to have another 100-yard rushing game. mark my words, ladies and gentlemen, unless Mike Davis steals the 60-yard run, it's going to happen. Chris Carson is going to be that number one running back that you somehow managed to pick up off the waivers, and he's going to win you this league. At least as of right now, I see him as a very good option for week 6 of the regular season, playing against them bum Raiders. I mean, this Seattle Seahawks offensive line, they're going to get after it. And I like Chris Carson behind them. And he's my number 8 this week. Plain and simple. I don't have any stats to break down. Let's see. Do I perhaps have some stats to break down? I mean, the way I see it, with having 20 carries per week, you're going to have fantasy relevance, right? I say this all the time with wide receivers. If you're going to have 10 targets plus, you're going to be fantasy relevant, okay? I don't care if you don't perform. If you're consistently getting opportunity, that's what you want as a fantasy owner. You want to target guys they're going to get consistent opportunity because opportunity only leads to success, right? You have to keep knocking on the door until you break it down finally. Okay, the Oakland defense, now that we've gotten here, have given up the 7th most fantasy points to the running back position. I mean, whoo, my goodness. This last week gave up 32 points to the running back position. The week prior against Cleveland. Do I have to remind you what happened against Cleveland with Nick Chubb and his 105 rushing yards and Carlos Hyde with his 82? And then, whoo, goodness, they've given up a lot of points to the running back position as of late. How did Duke Johnson get 11 points? The two-point conversions. That's what it is. I think as of right now, with the complete dominance that this offensive line has shown and the opportunity that Chris Carson keeps bursting out of that backfield, they look fast out of that backfield. I like him at number 8. Number 9, David Johnson, who, I mean, he's David Johnson, right? We expect David Johnson to perform at a specific level of excellence. And he's done that fantasy-wise in the last couple of weeks. Am I complaining? Absolutely not. This is what I want. I want him to put up 15-plus points a week. He's eventually going to have that one breakout game where he drops 30 for you, right? When is that going to be? I'm not sure. But he plays against the Minnesota defense. The Minnesota defense, especially their front seven, it's nothing as bad as the Eagles, or they're probably on the same level as the Jaguars, in my opinion, right? There is an opportunity to make plays there if you're good enough and you can get there. I think David Johnson this week, he's more of a receiving back. He's going to have opportunities in the run game, but most of his success is going to come from catching the ball out of the backfield because Josh Rosen needs that. He needs that check down. So, number 9, I have David Johnson. Do not be afraid to start him. 100%. Get him going. Fire him up. Number 10, Jordan Howard, coming off the bye week. I understand many of you may be worried. You may be thinking, Tarik Cohen did a lot in this past week. Is he going to take targets away? Should I try to trade Jordan Howard? Should I avoid him this week? By all means, I don't think so. I think against the Miami Dolphins, there is going to be an opportunity, right? The Miami Dolphins offense is not going to be able to move the ball. Now, watch. I'm saying this right now. I'm saying Khalil Mack, the defense, they've been fantastic. They just came off a bye week. They're going to be healthy. They're going to be ready for the Miami Dolphins. Watch the Miami Dolphins put up like 40 points. I'm telling you, shit happens to me. But I'm thinking the Miami Dolphins are not going to have many opportunities on offense. And I'm thinking Mitchell Trubisky, if he doesn't start getting it going, they're going to have to lean on the run game. I like Jordan Howard. He's the number 1 running back on this team. Don't let it be, don't be fooled by it. I don't care what Tarik Cohen did last week. I don't care how many touches he got. Jordan Howard is the guy. Tarik Cohen could see, 10 touches this coming game, but it's nothing to worry about. Jordan Howard is still the number 1 running back in the goal line back, and he's still very talented, so he's my number 10. Number 11, Joe Mixon. Had a great game this past week. A lot of it came out of the air. That receiving touchdown definitely helped him, but he is Joe Mixon. He is a part of this Bengals offense in which running backs have continuously scored fantasy points. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers this coming week, it's not a great matchup, but this is a division game. They're comfortable with, playing each other. I don't know. I think the Bengals might struggle this week, right? But I still think Joe Mixon is going to be fantasy relevant. He's a top 12 guy rest of the season. That's why he's at number 11 this week. Number 12, James White. One of my starts of the week. I mean, goodness, if he's going to continuously be used in the passing game in which he has been this season, I mean, let's go pull this up, shall we? Where are we at? James White, okay, thus far this season has had 24, oh my goodness, 27, oh my, 35, 44 targets. There are wide receivers. There are actual wide receivers in the NFL that don't have 44 targets yet. Oh my goodness. And here's the thing too, right? James White, it's not out of the ordinary for them to, boom, draw play. Boom, here goes James White, touchdown. It's not something that you should be surprised about. He's not a wide receiver. He may catch 10 balls out of the backfield, 8 balls out of the backfield, right? But he still has opportunity on the ground. I think against this matchup, Tom Brady's going to have to look to Gronk, Edelman. They're going to be covered, right? Those are the guys that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to want to shut down. James White is going to be open a lot. And he's going to have to find some success. I like him at number 12 this week. He's been performing out of his mind. He's been finding the end zone. I like him in PPR leagues and half-point PPR. He's my number 12. Number 13, Sony Michel. If you have both of the running backs for the Patriots, I think you should start them both, right? Unless you have someone above, I think they should both start, right? They are both fantastic candidates. The Patriots offense has looked better. Obviously, they haven't gone against great defenses, but I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs are much of a improvement on playing against defenses, right? Sony Michel has proven over, at least especially last week. I understand the week prior, should have had a great week against the Detroit Lions. That's a different conversation, but the game script, etc., etc. Sony Michel this week, he's going to have great opportunity. He's been looking good. This offensive line has been looking good. And the opportunities for the running backs and the Patriots, honestly, Sony Michel should have had a 25-point game last week. It's just that Tom Brady diving into the end zone that kind of took away some value. Number 14, my next start of the week, we have Devonta Freeman. So we've talked about Chris Carson. We've talked about James White. Here's Devonta Freeman. And then eventually we'll get to Mr. Aaron Jones. But Devonta Freeman this week, I honestly think that the Falcons need to get back to the run game, right? They have been missing the run game for the last couple of weeks, right? Not even just the last couple of weeks, the entire season almost, right? It feels like. There was that one game where Tevin Coleman had a lot of rushing yards against the Carolina Panthers. But I believe that this team, they need to get to the run game, right? They need to set up their opportunities. And you can't just completely drop back every time. You're going to end up like Andrew Luck where you're throwing the ball 60 times. That's nothing great, right? People can play against a team that only throws. But if you're diverse and you have to worry about stopping the run, it'll help your wide receivers that much more. It'll help Julio, Calvin Ridley, Mohamed Sanu, and God, if I say it, Austin Hooper. I think Devonta Freeman, he'll find some success this week. That's why he's at 14. Number 15, TJ Yeldon. Now, I understand that they picked up Jamal Charles today. This is not a great sign, but it's because Corey Grant had his season-ending injury this past week. They need a little bit more depth at the running back position. They need a backup running back. And Jamal Charles is going to be that guy. I don't think, oh my God, it must be Leonard Fournette's hamstring. He's out for the season. No, guys, don't panic. I've heard it, okay? People are panicking. Do not. This is just a precautionary measure. They need 2 running backs in the backfield just in case Yeldon goes down. That is why they brought in Jamal Charles. Okay? But as of right now, TJ Yeldon's been great. Okay? This past week, fantasy relevant. This coming week against the Dallas Cowboys, right? The Dallas Cowboys gave up a lot of points to Alfred Blue in that passing game, right? That's where TJ Yeldon, is pretty much his bread and butter in the passing game, right? And that's what helps Blake Bortles. Just be able to dump a couple balls out. He'll make some plays. Yeldon's my number 15 this week. Number 16, we have Carlos Hyde playing against the Chargers. I think he has a decent opportunity. I think the Browns have a good opportunity this week to be fantasy relevant. The Chargers defense is not great. I understand they may have held Marshawn Lynch and doo-doo Derek Carr to very minimal stats, but I think the Browns will be able to, shift that a little bit. and have some opportunity. I like Carlos Hyde this week as a mid-tier RB2. Number 17, we have Marshawn Lynch, who I just mentioned. Look, Marshawn Lynch, it really just depends on the game script, right? I keep mentioning game script. If you don't know what that means, it's when the offensive coordinator is forced to change up the way he approaches the game due to the score, right? If you're up 40 points, what are you going to do? You're not going to pass the ball. You're going to run the ball to kill the clock. If you're down 40 points, what are you going to do? You're going to pass the ball so that you don't kill the clock, so that you can completely just go, score, Try to get as many yards as you possibly can, okay? Marshawn Lynch, when the game script gets away from them, as in they are down many points, is no longer on the field. It's Jalen Richard, like I mentioned in my Hidden Gems video, right? Marshawn Lynch, hopefully this week against Seattle Seahawks, will have a better opportunity to run the ball. It is his team, right? This is the revenge game, people. This is it. This is the week. If anything, he should have been a start of the week. But the Raiders are playing the Seahawks. And I for one, believe Marshawn Lynch has got something to prove, especially with what the Seahawks has been doing in the run game. Marshawn Lynch has got something to prove. He's got himself a good offensive line as well. He's got to be able to pick it up. He will. He's my number 17. Number 18, my last start of the week, we have Aaron Jones. I'm telling you guys, do not give up on him. He will find success on Monday Night Football against the 49ers. Do not worry about Jamal Williams and Ty Montgomery. It's going to be Aaron Jones, and it's going to be Aaron Jones all the time. I'm telling you, just believe in the process. The damn 76ers, 49ers, all the same, right? But either way, I like him this coming week. As I mentioned before, 6 yards per carry average thus far throughout the season. They're going to continue to use him more as the season progresses, and I think Aaron Jones is going to have a great fantasy week in Week 6. Now, let's get to the last couple. We've been here for a while, but I've been talking. I'm enjoying this, right? I hope you guys enjoy it. If you like this, go down, let me hear it. Hit that like button. I know you guys do. I appreciate it. Really, honestly, I appreciate it, guys. It's fantastic. Number 19. This is the highest Isaiah Crowell will ever be ranked. He came off of a 200-yard game. He's only in 19. Now, this coming week, he has a great matchup, right? I don't think he's going to have a 200-yard game. But against the Indianapolis Colts, Sony Michel was able to move the ball. James White out of the backfield. Bilal Powell and Crowell might have a very good opportunity to move the ball. I think Crowell could be a very, very serviceable start this coming week. That's why I have him at 19. I'm not saying, he's going off, right? But he's going to be good. He's going to get you 10-plus fantasy points, especially if they get on that goal line. Isaiah Crowell is the guy to step up and punch it in. So, Isaiah Crowell, you're number 19. Congratulations. You've made it on the list, and you've made it up pretty high. You almost got onto the first page of the rankings. Maybe after this week, you can mosey your way on there. Wendell Smallwood, number 20. Now, I think it's really going to depend, considering it's a short week. Wendell Smallwood, Corey Clement, who is going to have majority of the touches? As of late, there's been news that came out. Corey Clement has gotten, healthy. You don't have to worry about his quad. He's been practicing full. Now, the thing I want to mention really quickly, there was other news that came out earlier today that kind of excited me. LeSean McCoy, as we know, used to be a Philadelphia Eagle and is now playing for the Buffalo Bills. The Philadelphia Eagles reached out to the Buffalo Bills earlier today and were trying to propose a trade in order to receive LeSean McCoy back. Now, as we all know, J.J. out for the season with that ACL injury. There is a possibility that LeSean McCoy reunites with his team and ends up back on the Philadelphia Eagles, which would be a fantastic reunion. Hopefully that ends up happening. Now, if it doesn't, which, it really depends on whether the Bills look themselves in the mirror and decide we're in the rebuilding stage. Let's get some picks out of this guy, right? But anyway, Wendell Smallwood, I think as of right now, is going to be that lead back. He can be used both in the running game and the passing game. I understand Corey Clement is also just as good, but coming off that injury, they're probably going to take it a little slow on him. Probably use him majority in the passing game. I like Wendell Smallwood as my number 20 this week. Number 21, I have a mixture, okay? I'm not 100% certain that Dalvin Cook's going to play this week. Now, I hope he does. He has a very great matchup, right? We saw with Matt Breida until he got injured and what Alfred Morris was able to do against the Cardinals. The Cardinals have given up a lot of fantasy points to the running back position thus far this season. And I think if Dalvin Cook can be healthy, he can be extremely fantasy relevant. If Dalvin Cook doesn't play, I still see Latavius Murray having a really good opportunity to have himself a good week finally, okay? Because of such a great matchup. I like these running backs, but specifically one of them, okay? It's either one or the other depending on who starts. If both of them play, you got to lean with Cook because he is the youth and he's really good. I know many of you don't trust in Dalvin Cook, but honestly, he is really good at running the ball. Okay, if you haven't seen some of his highlights, go check it out. Dude, it'll change your mind a little bit, okay? Number 22, we have Phillip Lindsay. As I mentioned yesterday, Royce Freeman's not getting the ball out of this backfield. And honestly, the game script's not going to look great for them this week. They play against the Los Angeles Rams, in which we all know are going to put up points. Now, what is that exactly going to do? It's going to force the good old Broncos that really just didn't have a defense this past week to either play some defense or to try to score the ball on offense. Now, if you're trying to score the ball on offense, you're probably not going to have Royce Freeman out there. Only had 5 touches on the ground this past week. Phillip Lindsay, on the other hand, had 12. Phillip Lindsay is more of the overall running back that the Broncos currently need. I think Royce Freeman is the better talent going forward, but that's not the case right now. Phillip Lindsay is getting more opportunity. He's being used in the run and passing game, and that is why he's at 22. He is a guy that can consistently score. This defense of the Rams, they've proven it 2 weeks in a row. They are not invincible, and they're not even close to that. They're giving up 30 points a game on the defense side in the last 2 weeks. I think Phillip Lindsay could have a great opportunity, especially on the ground and in the passing game. He's my number 22. Number 23. Now, here's the thing. If Matt Breida plays, I doubt he plays. Let's just put it that way. But if he does, it's going to hurt Morris, obviously. But I think if he does, obviously he's going to be healthy, right? They're not going to put Matt Breida out there to jeopardize more games the rest of the season. So I think even if it's just Alfred Morris out there, I like him this coming week. I like Alfred Morris. I saw what he did last week. I understand they played against the Cardinals, which were a weaker defense, but the Packers aren't that great against the run either. I think Alfred Morris, Matt Breida, whoever it may be, they're going to have a good opportunity. They're my number 23. Wow, that came out really weird. All right, number 24, Nyheim Hines, especially in a half-point PPR standard. I'm on the train, people. I said it yesterday. I missed the train. I'm on it. Forget Marlon Mack. He's dead in the water. Forget Jordan Wilkins. It's Nyheim Hines, and it's Andrew Luck throwing the ball 60 times. Therefore, we're going to have some fantasy production out of the backfield here. Nyheim Hines against the Jets. Not a great defense. Somebody that they can exploit. Maybe get a big play. Nyheim Hines is someone you can't ignore, especially going forward. He's my number 24. Number 25. Now, some news, right? If you're able to watch this before your waivers go through, which you probably won't be able to, but it is what it is. Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson were both hurt after last night's game. From what I had, really quickly saw a quick glimpse of it, Adrian Peterson had dislocated his shoulder, gotten a shoulder injury of some sort, and Chris Thompson had a rib injury. Okay, if both of these guys are out this coming week, Kapri, Bibbs, Samaje Perine, period. Both these guys will be used, and both of them will be decently successful. Kapri Bibbs was able to find himself in the end zone this past week, even after those injuries to Peterson and Thompson. I think Bibbs is the third down back that will replace Thompson if he's not able to play, and Perine is the first and second down back. But I like Kapri Bibbs this coming week against the Carolina Panthers, who gave up a lot of points to Saquon Barkley in the passing game. But obviously it was that big, Odell to Saquon pass that kind of tipped the scales. But either way, I like Kapri Bibbs, maybe even as a waiver wire pickup for some of you. Number 26, we have Dion Lewis playing against the Baltimore Ravens, as I mentioned before. It's going to be a tough matchup, but out of the backfield, he's going to be able to produce in the passing game. I like Dion Lewis as a receiving back in PPR. If you're not playing in PPR, it's very risky to play him. That is why he's at 26 either way, because I don't completely trust him because there is still the nagging mess of Derrick Henry still in that backfield. Number 27, we have LeSean McCoy. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, hopefully ends up on the Eagles by the end of this season. Oh, my goodness. What the heck just happened? Oh, my God. Okay, we're good. The whole setup almost exploded. But either way, LeSean McCoy, rest of the season on the Buffalo Bills. Is he going to have a great season? Maybe, right? He had a pretty good game this past week against the Tennessee Titans. By all means, it's a pretty good defense, but they got exploited. I think the Buffalo Bills, as they played the Houston Texans this week, could have a good opportunity to score some points, especially with LeSean McCoy now being more used in the passing game. He could be fantasy relevant. He's at number 27 with the upside of a little bit extra. I'm very cautious on these Buffalo Bills, people. I'm very cautious, okay? That is why I have him a little bit lower. But, God, if he ends up on the Eagles, oh, my God, it's over. It's over. You guys that have LeSean McCoy will be rejoiced. You'll be partying. Oh, God, would that be amazing. Number 28, we have Mike Davis. Yes, I think Chris Carson is going to be great, but there's still room for Mike Davis to be awesome, and that is why he's at 28. He has an opportunity to find himself some yards against a defense that really can't stop the run thus far this season, and they keep giving up points to the fantasy running backs. So why not Mike Davis, this obviously dominant up front offensive line? They're going to move the ball. Davis has looked good in the last 2 weeks, and he found himself on the goal line picking himself a touchdown this past week, which gave him 13 fantasy points in half-point PPR. I like him at number 28. Number 29, Tevin Coleman, a guy that, as I mentioned before, has been used and utilized as that change of pace back. They've, in the past couple years, used Devonta Freeman as the first couple downs. They've used Devonta Freeman on third down, but they like to bring in Tevin Coleman, change of pace, a fresh running back with fresh legs out of the backfield. I still think he's going to be relevant. I think he's going to have fantasy value. He's my number 29. Number 30, another guy just like that, right? The Chargers use Austin Ekeler as that surge, as I mentioned before. He's going to be great. He's been fantastic in fantasy this year, especially in PPR. He's my number 30. Number 31, Corey Clement. I cannot ignore him. I do not know how this backfield is going to completely turn out, and I don't know how the game script is going to, lean. So I think if the game script leans toward running the ball, Wendell Smallwood is going to get majority of touches. But when they begin to pass, Corey Clement is going to have his opportunities. That is where he thrives within this offense. He's my number 31 this week. Number 32, we have ourselves Alfred Blue / Lamar Miller. Here's the thing. This is the way I see it. As I mentioned yesterday, I think Alfred Blue is as of what he showed on Sunday Night Football, he's produced better than what Lamar Miller has been able to do. I understand 20 carries, 40 rushing yards, that's terrible, right? I understand that. But that spark he was able to give the team in the passing game is what we want. I don't know who's going to end up starting, but somebody here is going to be a decent running back. It'll probably end up being Lamar Miller, though, until D'Onta Foreman comes back, and then we're going to have some problems. Then we're going to have to start figuring out where it's going to go, because Foreman's an immovable object and an unstoppable force all at the same time. All right, number 33, we have Alex Collins, who I've not been impressed with as of late. I understand they had a very rough matchup. They weren't able to move the ball this past week. Still, it gives them no excuse to be just inconsistent and terrible on a weekly basis. For fantasy owners, this is not what we want. He's a guy that I would consider sitting this week also. I'm not having it with Alex Collins. I really was on the train in the beginning of the season, but he's continued to prove me wrong every time when I want to, talk about him and say he's great. And he doesn't do me any favors, so I won't do him any. Number 34, Tarik Cohen. I don't think he's going to be completely irrelevant. I know I ranked Jordan Howard higher at top 10. I still think Tarik Cohen with 10 touches, people, is a 10-point fantasy guy. He's going to make plays like nobody else can. He is extremely dynamic. He showed us 2 weeks back, and I mentioned him in my hidden gems that if he was able to get 10 touches, he'd be incredible. He got 20 that week. Obviously, he's not going to get 20 touches again. If that is to happen, oh my goodness, the Jordan Howard era is over, and they'll look to trade him. Number 35, we have Bilal Powell. As I said before, with Isaiah Crowell up there, where is it? Up there? Yeah, up there. There's going to be opportunity for the running backs of the Jets to play against a very weak Colts defense and find great opportunities, especially with the Colts giving up so many receptions to the running back. Prior to playing James White, the statistic was the Jets are giving up 4 receptions to the running back position per game. I think Bilal Powell, of all the running backs, is going to be the receiving back for the Jets, and I think he's going to have a decent, comfortable game, maybe 8 fantasy points tops, maybe a little bit more, depending on if he makes a great play. Number 36, the last running back I want to mention. I don't know if Peyton Barber is going to get the first team snaps. I don't know if Ronald Jones is going to get the first team snaps. But as of right now, I think Ronald Jones is the way of the future. I think with the amount of points that the Falcons are giving up on the ground, Ronald Jones can potentially have himself a good week and be fantasy relevant. I'm not saying completely start him, but I just wanted to use this time at the number 36 spot to just remind you guys that if he's on the waivers and you have an extra available spot, I would suggest taking the chance. It's not going to hurt. Worst case scenario, you drop him in 2 weeks, okay? But just consider it. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching. This has taken some amount of time, but I like talking fantasy football and I love football. So, and I'm sure you guys do too, for those of you who have made it this far. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And for those of you who already have, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Can't thank you guys enough. It's an absolute pleasure. And until the next video, which I'm going to record in about 10 minutes, we got quarterbacks to talk about. It's a pretty fun week. Good luck this week in your fantasy. And go ahead, go down the comment section and ask away. And until next time, I'll see you guys.